This video I made for Sungazer's new single called Threshold is the most complicated animation I've ever made. Let me show you how I did it. When I first heard the music, I thought it'd be cool if the whole animation took place in like a labyrinth or something. And since Sean and Adam use a lot of retro kind of vaporwave imagery in Sungazer's artwork, I thought, what if we had like a vaporwave mall labyrinth kind of MC Escher impossible mall thing? So I modeled this mall first. To get those surreal sky/window textures, I took a bunch of stock photos of skyscrapers with big windows and I put them together into one texture, and then I can apply that texture to different shapes I make like this. Now in my music videos, I usually like to focus on one character to sort of guide you through the music and just something for us to follow through all the complicated twists and turns. So for this video, I made this humanoid character with the same color scheme as the mall. This character is really cool because when you move it around, its body morphs and is also blocky and pixelated. I achieved this look using 3D effect plugins called modifiers. First, put a subdivision surface modifier on your character to add more detail. Then, put a displacement modifier on the character to take that detail and make it bumpy and move it around. Make sure you set this to global coordinates. That's what makes it so that it changes when you move the character around. Finally, you're gonna put what's called a remesh modifier on it and set it to be blocky like this. Now we've got that Minecraft kind of pixel art look, but whenever you move the character around, it updates and changes the texture. These modifiers, these things I've been using called modifiers, you can think of them sort of like effects pedals for an object. So instead of putting reverb or delay on a sound, we're putting different effects on this cube. By the way, if you want to use 3D animation to make your own music videos, you might want to check out my new course called Blender for Musicians. In it, I teach you how to use this free open source 3D animation software called Blender. And the course is designed for musicians who don't necessarily have a background in visual art or a fancy computer, and it covers learning Blender from scratch, character creation, animation, and abstract effects. It's everything you'd need to make a long-form music video in Blender, or just really expressive social media posts or your own album cover, visual art for your music. After I made my pixelated character here in the 3D mall, I started animating camera motions to the music and having the character leave the frame and then re-enter at the new camera position. This lined up with the hits in the music really nicely and it looks so snappy. A lot of what makes it so snappy is that this video is actually in 60 frames per second. Now most animations are in 24 frames per second, but when Adam Neely was telling me his vision for this video, he had the intuition that if this was 60 frames per second, it would look really cool for this song, and he was totally right. And I'd never tried that before because 60 frames per second, that just means more than twice as many frames to render. So each frame can take quite a while to render, and a video like this at 60 frames per second can be like 14,000 or more frames. Now the most intricate shot in this video is this factory scene right here. I knew I wanted to make a hammer smashing stuff with each hit, and I wanted the stuff to be coming to the hammer on a conveyor belt. So I tried to think about this scene like an engineer who's actually making some machine that actually could work in some kind of way. So first, I made two rotating cylinders that would be heating up some material and then spitting it out when it's nice and soft to get smashed by the hammer thing. Then I made a path and little jelly bean spheres to go on the path, and to do this I took these 3 steps. First, you make a jelly bean and put an array modifier on it so that there are many of them. Then you make a path to show where you want the beans to go. And finally, you tell the beans to follow that path using a curve modifier. Now we have traveling beans. Once again, I'm using these modifiers, these effects, to get these simple objects to behave in interesting ways. And then finally, I ran a fluid simulation on the whole thing that lets everything splash around and be all goopy, and it looks gorgeous, but whew, it was tasking on my computer to say the least. It took an eternity to make this shot. After all those beans were smashed and all that fluid was everywhere, I just wanted the whole video to melt. And Adam really wanted the vibe to change right around here. So it was the perfect time to start using AI to melt these babies up. I used a software called EebiSynth that basically takes footage like this and lets you kind of color it in with a still image like this. And then after you run the synth on it, it's a visual synth, you run it on it and you get something like this. And so I used EebiSynth to sort of melt all the footage for the rest of the video, and you get this nice marriage of organic kind of watercolor textures with the very rigid and confident 3D structures from the 3D animation. I love how this turned out. I love this song. I love Adam and Sean. I love Sungazer's music. It's just so nice that this got to happen. And I hope you go and check out the video if you haven't seen it yet on Adam's channel. And if you want to make 3D animation of your own, maybe check out my course, Blender for Musicians. Why not? There's a link below.